message from the Catholic Church.
Welcome back to Archbishop's Hour. You're listening to us at 98.9 FM in Albuquerque, 104.5 in Santa Fe, and 100.7 in Gallup. And today we continue our celebration of Catholic schools in the Archdiocese of Santa Fe. In time for Catholic Schools Week, the last full week in January, my guest in the studio today, I'm so pleased, is Abigail Walden. She is assistant principal of St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic School in Rio Rancho. Welcome, Abigail. I'm so pleased to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me here.
And could you please mention by name your principal who was so kind to send you to celebrate the wonders of St. Thomas Aquinas School?
Our wonderful principal is Sister Anne Louise Abascal.
Sister Anne Louise could not be here today. She's a very busy and important woman. But I hope that just at the get-go, you could mention the Filipini sisters who have taught at St. Thomas Aquinas for several years. Can you tell us a little bit about them and their legacy there at St. Thomas Aquinas?
Yes. The religious sisters, Filipini, they came to us from New Jersey. They came to us 20 years ago to help us establish St. Thomas Aquinas School. They are quite a blessing.
Wow, they were especially invited, that particular order.
Yes.
All right.
Our pastor, Monsignor Ron, took the journey to New Jersey and invited them to come and help us open a school. And we actually have the only sisters on this side of the Mississippi. Although their order is quite an order, they're located in 8 different countries, and their charism is mainly in education.
How marvelous is that? I know that some 15 years ago, the superintendent of Catholic schools, Sister Mary, was a Filipini sister as well.
She was our founding principal.
A blessing and many thanks to the order.
The Religious Teachers Filipini.
The Religious Teachers Filipini. How marvelous is that? And thank you very much to your principal for allowing this interview. We move along to Abigail Walden herself, the assistant principal. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became involved in Catholic education as an educator?
As an educator, well, 20 years ago when the school first opened, I remember it was summer and I decided to enroll my oldest son at STA at St. Thomas. And I took a tour before the school ever opened. He was a first grader at the time, incoming first grader.
Wow.
And the second I met the sisters, I just fell in love with the school. I decided that I wanted to give him the gift of Catholic education, the way my parents gave that gift to me.
Let's go further back. Tell us about where you went to Catholic schools.
I grew up in Southern California. I attended Immaculate Conception School in Monrovia, and then I went on to attend Alverno Heights Academy in Sierra Madre, California. It was a wonderful gift. It was a great sacrifice for my parents to have me go to these schools, and there was nothing I could do but offer the same thing to my 4 sons. And all 4 of my sons have gone to Catholic school since kindergarten.
Did you have to wear uniforms when you went to school?
Yes.
Where did you go to university?
I went to California State University in Fullerton. I studied speech and language pathology. And then when I moved to New Mexico, I decided to return to school. I went to Highlands University, continued my education, and I'm still continuing my education because I value it so much, pursuing another degree.
So did you work in speech pathology?
For a time I did. I worked with deaf students with Albuquerque Public Schools and with the School for the Deaf. And I did a lot of language intervention work, but my heart really was in Catholic education because that's how I grew up. I started working at St. Thomas as a substitute 20 years ago. I had 3 sons at the time and an infant son. I decided to go to the school and I volunteered my services as a substitute. And within that year, I was hired on as a teacher for the following year to have my own classroom. And I taught 3rd grade for 18 years before becoming assistant principal.
How did everyone decide upon 3rd grade as being the place for you and for your students? I mean, how did you pick 3rd grade?
Well, interpreting, as I did for the deaf, I was given many opportunities to work at different grade levels from kindergarten through college, and 3rd grade was always my favorite. And I wanted to also prepare children for First Holy Communion.
I have to admit that 3rd graders are some of the most wonderful people on earth. They just happen to have arrived. They're lovely, sensible people.
They are.
They're not babies anymore. They haven't gone into the fraught with angst teenage years, as lovely as they can also be. Not that I have any favorites. All of a sudden, you are, for many years, jumped into mainstream Catholic education. Tell us a little bit about the school, St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic School, from what is the earliest?
The earliest is pre-kindergarten, and we go up to 8th grade. It's a wonderful school, very dynamic. We have teachers that are just wonderful with the students as well, working with them individually. Really, the school itself is just such a special place to me because my sons attended that school, and they were raised in that system.
Your son, who went in that first year as a first grader, he was first grader. They had
the first Walden there. There was a Walden student there for 19 years.
But he was not in the first graduating class. Wouldn't there have been 7th graders who then would graduate? You know, they'd be the first graduating 8th grade class.
We started with 5th grade.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and then as the years passed on, they moved up, and then we graduate students at 8th grade. So our first graduating class, now they're out in the workplace. They're they're bringing their children back to us as kindergartners and preschoolers now.
Now it's a legacy school.
It is. It's a legacy school for sure.
20 years ago, what were your expectations when you sent your son to first grade there? How did they change between then and when you became a teacher there? And then we'll bother you about what it's like from the vantage point of an assistant principal. But what were your expectations when your son was in first grade?
Well, I was actually very blessed that Sister Anne Louise was his first grade teacher. And she's now the principal. She was a dynamic and wonderful first grade teacher. I couldn't have asked for more. And my son received a wonderful education. And it really made me want to have my other sons follow. And I was very blessed that the sisters, Sister Dolores, Sister Anne Louise, they were both able to teach my sons when they were at school there.
What's the hallmark, would you say, of what is so wonderful about the education your sons received?
It's a dynamic education, a very orthodox education grounded in our faith. We develop character. We develop a love of the faith, not just talking the faith, but really living it. The children grow up to be contributors to society, and really they carry with them those values to approach life in a loving way, in a caring way, but in a way that where they really want to excel, do the best they can in service to God. And that's what I found with my 4 sons.
So how is that message delivered through the various classes and experiences of the school?
Catholic identity is a huge part of our school. Every grade is grounded in prayer and a prayer life. We start the day with prayer. We end the day with prayer. We pray the rosary after lunch. We have experiences such as Mass every week. And then we also go out of our way to live our faith by doing things like every Mass we collect for St. Felix Pantry. And our class will put on Mass and prepare all the readings. It's really living your faith and going out of your way to be an active member.
How often do you have a school Mass?
There is Mass once a week, but it's offered on Thursday and Friday. So on Thursday we do pre-kindergarten through 4th, and they celebrate Mass, prepare Mass. And then on Friday it's our mid-school, 5th grade to 8th grade, they prepare Mass.
Tell me about the academic life.
Academics they're wonderful at St. Thomas, I have to say. We have a very well-rounded educational system where we focus on not just one area, but really giving a holistic background and foundation to the students, where they learn their language arts very well. They learn to read very well. They learn their core subjects. They become problem solvers. They're able to be articulate, to argue points if they have to defend their faith if they have to. You know, they develop this love of learning. And that love of learning really carries them through high school, through college, to be successful.
So do they have options for, let's say, foreign language, art, phys ed, music?
Yes. Yes, of course.
Tell me
yes
about
to
that.
all of them. We have a Spanish teacher. We also have music, a wonderful music class. But in addition to that, extracurricularly, we also have a band program before school, where students can learn additional instruments and follow that love of music if they'd like. We have an art program. We have computer lab. We have a wonderful science lab, but we don't rely on just one subject. We really, really want to have a child who's well-rounded and prepared for anything that the future might present them with.
What's the enrollment these days?
Well, our highest enrollment has been in the 420s, our lowest in the 380s. We'd love to see the school at 425.
All right. And do you have a registration going on this spring? Some of the
Yes.
schools start now, some later, but if you wait till next September, it's a little too late. So tell me about it.
You need to secure your spot now. Go to St. Thomas. We'll do enrollment right now for next school year. We have room in pre-kindergarten to 8th grade. So now's
Is there
the
a
time to go.
website where people can find out more information?
Yes, there is. It's stasnm.org.
STASNM.org for St. Thomas Aquinas School,
Yes.
New Mexico, because you know that there are other St. Thomas Aquinas schools in the world, but not in Rio Rancho, not in New Mexico.
Yes.
So, so we've talked about enrollment. We've talked about you are accepting kids, but now is the time to register. Do you have an open house coming up?
We do. February 6th at 10 a.m.
All right, February 6th at 10 a.m. And how long through the day? Or does everybody have to be there at 10 a.m.?
Well, you're welcome anytime. You don't have to wait till February 6th. If you wanted to have a tour, just give the school a call, and I would give you a personal tour of the school.
Do you have a phone number for this school?
It's 892-3221.
892-3221. Call Abigail Walden, and she will give you a tour of the school.
Yes.
That's the assistant principal talking there. But the big open house is on February 6th. What's
Yes.
planned for that day?
On that day, we'll have tours throughout the entire school from pre-kindergarten to 8th grade. We'll be able to have meetings with Sister Anne Louise to tell you more. You'll get to meet her yourself, which is a wonderful thing to do. You would get to see our cafeteria, our gym, our playground. Our campus is very unique because it's actually located on a separate school campus than the church. We have a full campus on 10 acres, an enclosed school building with a gym, cafeteria. Our classrooms are arranged in a hall around our chapel. The chapel is the heart of our school, and the Blessed Sacrament is there. It's a wonderful place to visit. You can see our chapel, the classrooms, the cafeteria, our wonderful playground, and really take a look at the different programs that we offer.
What's the address?
It's 1100 Hood Road, Southeast, in Rio Rancho, New Mexico.
All right. So people have an idea of where they're going, and they're not automatically going to St. Thomas Aquinas Church.
No, we're located about 10 minutes away from the church.
How do you like that? Now, I understand that in recent years there has been maybe a capital campaign and effort with the intention of building a larger church.
Yes.
Is there any possibility of somehow having a coinciding location of school and church, or does that matter really?
No, our school is a separate campus, but we're a very active part of the parish. We're a ministry of the parish. And our parish takes an active role in our school. Our pastor, Monsignor Vaughn, he personally visits the school, loves coming to see us. He really does take a fatherly role in watching over us, and he helped to establish the school.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about the staff and the educators there. How many Filipino sisters are actually able to be there, other than your wonderful principal, in teaching kids?
Well, actually, right now we have Sister Anne Louise, our principal.
Yeah.
Our other Filipino sisters have been going back to the Mother House in Morristown, New Jersey. Last year, we had a wonderful novitiate that came and spent the year with us. She was able to talk about the vocation, and we're hoping to have more young women join the order and continue the tradition of teaching in the Filipino charism.
Well, that's pretty marvelous. So, who are your teachers?
Our teachers are just wonderful. Many of them have been there since the school opened. They'll be celebrating their 20th year very soon. They are dynamic teachers, very caring. Definitely their vocation is about serving God.
Can you mention any?
Well, we have wonderful teachers. I don't want us to mention one and forget the others, but we have, Sister Ann Louise, the principal, Mrs. Ricard, who's been there also since the school opened, Mrs. Madrid, Miss Lawton. I'm sure many of our listeners might remember them as their own teachers. We have Mrs. Schulte, Mrs. Van Lobenzels, Mrs. Lucero Cisneros, Miss Lucero. Our kindergarten program is just wonderful. We have wonderful pre-K teachers. Mrs. V. Hill, who was our teacher of the year. We have a wonderful science teacher. Today was actually the end of the science fair, and Mr. V. Hill did a phenomenal job with the science fair yesterday. Our children were just really their efforts were on display. It was wonderful to see all the hands-on projects that they worked on and presented and discussed with the judges. I would say that our teachers really do stand out because they're so dedicated. They're incredibly dedicated. You have teachers that show up at our school at 7 a.m. well before they need to be there, and they stay there late. They go out of their way to really work with the children individually, tutoring them before school, after school, doing anything they can really to help them. And I don't want to miss any teachers by name, but we have, Mrs. Bensi, our wonderful music teacher, who every year prepares a wonderful Christmas program for our families. We have a great art teacher, Mrs. Brito. We have Mr. Schulte, who's our computer lab teacher, our math teacher, Mrs. Steiner, Mrs. Lutz, who's our social studies teacher in middle school. We have a dynamic and wonderful team when it comes to teaching.
I understand that you had a special relationship, the school, St. Thomas Aquinas, with the Catholic Foundation and the funding of a special program. What are the details on that?
Yes, through the generosity of the Catholic Foundation, they helped us start a phonological classroom. And it's
a what? Say that again.
Phonological.
What
it's
does
a
that mean?
fancy word for phonics. So we have a very strong reading program, and we're able to really individualize the student needs by helping them build a strong foundation in phonics for grades pre-kindergarten through third grade. We have a program called Spire and a program called Sound Sensible that we were able to purchase because of the Catholic Foundation. And this program helps specifically children who might have problems in reading related to maybe dyslexia or other processing issues. We also were able to open a resource room where we were able to give some individualized attention and small group work so that we could really help not just our wonderful students who excel academically, but also those who might need a little extra help.
So tell me, how does the phonological
Yes.
program work? And what do we mean by program? Is that a program on a computer? What is that?
No, it's not a computer program. We actually work one-on-one or in small group with students, and we go over sounds. We follow their curriculum, the Spire curriculum, which is wonderful for pinpointing exactly what sounds students are having trouble with, maybe reading and recognizing.
What is this about the science lab? You've just been involved in the science fair.
Yes.
What kind of things are going on there?
Yes, well, we just remodeled the science lab this summer. We have a wonderful science teacher, Mr. V. Hill. He's done a wonderful job of making our science program interactive and hands-on, involving technology, starting some programming, hopefully for robotics very soon.
Robotics keeps popping up in all the curriculum of all these,
does.
we're talking elementary schools, and I find it so entertaining. When I was in school, that would have waited till high school or later. The kids love this.
They love it. And our math teacher, Mrs. Steiner, she's just been wonderful collaborating with Mr. V. Hill. They'll be beginning some interesting projects very soon.
What grades actually participate in science fair?
Science fair is for middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we also have a 4th grade science fair to get their feet wet and to start learning about the whole scientific process. But we really do teach science from our little ones throughout the entire grade, all the way to 8th grade.
What kind of science classes are for first graders?
Oh, you should see the wonderful little projects they do. It's wonderful. They do presentations on the planets. They do experiments. When I taught third grade, it was so fun to do experiments with the children and to really get them to interact and to work with their hands. We had some great ones that we did. One time I remember I did little Jell-O cups, and in the Jell-O cups I put a bunch of little beads and things for them to mine so that they could mine for natural resources and then see the impact on the earth. things that are visual, that are interactive, that really go beyond the textbook.
All right, that sounds like fun. I want to be in your third grade class. And speaking of, as assistant principal, do you also still work in the classroom, or is it pretty much the desk driving that happens these days?
I'm not behind the desk. I'm out there.
Right.
Yes, I take a great interest in interacting with the students and working with the staff.
Do you miss being in the classroom teaching?
I do miss teaching. I miss teaching. I miss teaching science. That's one thing I do miss. I miss teaching math. I miss very much the teaching of reading. But I find now that I'm in a position where I can really help so many children and have just a different role.
We're speaking, by the way, to Abigail Walden, who is the assistant principal at St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic School in Rio Rancho. And by the way, you can go to their website to learn more about them. And it's not too early to think about registration for next fall. We're already talking about the 2020-2021 school year that starts in September. Seems pretty far down the pike, but no, it's right around the corner. And I'm looking again for the website, which we think is stasnm.org for St. Thomas Aquinas School, New Mexico.org. You can find out all kinds of things, and there are wonderful photos, and it's just a great place to kind of get your bearings on this wonderful school. I wanted to ask you about where the kids come from, the families who send their kids to St. Thomas Aquinas. Are they all in the parish?
No, actually, they're not all in the parish. We are on the west side of town, the only Catholic school on that side of the river, on the west side. And it's a wonderful draw for the west side of town. But we have students that even come to us from Cochiti, from Zia, and make that long commute to our school.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the draw? We're preaching to the choir, of course. It's a good Catholic education.
It is a good Catholic education.
All right. Where do kids go to high school when they matriculate?
Well, some of our students do go to St. Thomas, to St. Pius, the 10th high school. We also have students to go to Rio Rancho, that go to Cleveland. Our students, they really do go out into the public with a strong foundation and preparation for what they need in high school.
Do they keep in touch after they've gone on to do their deeds in the world, maybe
Yes.
when they go to college?
Yes, and it would be wonderful to hear from our alums. I would love to hear from them and hear the stories of what life is like now. They're welcome to also call me, go to the website, send me an email. I would love to hear from you and hear the stories that you have. Actually, it is one of my goals to try to hear more about the stories. Now, I'm blessed that I had 4 sons that graduated from St. Thomas, went on to St. Pius. 3 have graduated from St. Pius now, and I have 1 attending St. Pius. So I do hear stories of our alums and where they've gone to school, what they're doing now. But I would love to hear from our alums.
It's pretty exciting to hear about the wonderful community of our Catholic schools, the families and the kids who go to the schools, and the faith basis and foundation. Tell me about sports. Do you have sports?
We do. We have sports. We have cross country. We have track and field. We have basketball. We have volleyball. We actually have sports. Even our little ones and in the elementary school grades participate in sports. But our middle school, they love the sports. I was very blessed to have my sons participate in the sports program. They went on to Pius to be successful athletes as well. Really, it's a love of athletics, a love of sportsmanship. My sons, they did participate in sports at St. Thomas, also at St. Pius, and 2 of my sons went on to play college sports. So,
what specific sports?
You would never guess it. My 2 older sons played rugby, and they learned it at St. Pius.
Well, rugby is a tough game.
Yes.
You learn what scrums are in rugby.
You do. And my oldest went on to St. Mary's College in California, played rugby, and won a national championship. And my second son, he also loved rugby, played at Pius, and went on to play for St. Mary's in Northern California. And he won 2 national championships.
So what are the other sports? You did mention a gym, so I'm thinking basketball. What have you got over there?
Yes, basketball. Right now, we're in the middle of boys' basketball season. We also have volleyball. We have cross country, which is a wonderful sport. Love that sport. We have track and field. Sports, it makes for a well-rounded student. You can't have just one part of a student addressed. Being healthy, being an athlete, learning good character traits through sportsmanship, it really does help you in life.
And it's just healthy to be able to get out and move around.
It is.
It's pretty exciting. So do you go to all the games as the assistant principal?
I make some of them. Yes, I do. I make some of them. I should make more. I do. There was a time when my teaching career where I actually coached girls basketball. And maybe some of your listeners are my former athletes. I did enjoy that for a time. It was wonderful. And being on the court, it was a really fun time. Right now, I can't coach right now, but I loved it.
Wow. Really wonderful to know that these kids are involved in all of these activities. So they're studying language other than English?
Yes, Spanish.
All right.
And we also have our math teacher, Mrs. Steiner, is starting a Latin club.
So is Latin a regular part of the curriculum, or is that kind of an add-on?
An extracurricular activity the students are involved in.
Wow.
Yes.
And how popular is that?
We're just starting it up. So we'll see. We've had it in the past, and we actually had Latin as a choice of language in the past. And now that we have Mrs. Steiner, and she actually has a strong background in Latin, she's going to be working with our students again.
Outstanding. So we've talked about the wonderful help through the Catholic Foundation of your special programs, sports, art, band,
Yes.
the core curriculum, and also, of course, faith and Catholic identity. Is there anything we've missed as we cruise into the home stretch of our conversation today that you'd like to make a point of about St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic School in Rio Rancho?
Well, I think that just the fact that we have our religious sisters Filippini, it's such a wonderful charism of caring and focusing on education. Their motto to go forth and teach the word of God, that going forth, the going into society, our students really do carry with them that mission of love and service. Our students are involved in service. I think that's something to really mention, that we encourage an awareness of social justice. We encourage community involvement, not just by collecting food. We do that every Mass. We collect food for St. Felix Pantry, but we also help people like the Little Sisters of the Poor. We collect for them on an annual basis and provide them with as much support as we can. We also have students that go out of their way to start their own initiative. Recently, we had students from our school coordinate with St. Pius to do a collection of blankets, of all things. And they provided 420 blankets, probably more from the pictures that are on our Facebook page. You could always go to Facebook and look up St. Thomas Aquinas School and see what we're up to. It was a beautiful thing to see something that wasn't initiated really by administration, but it was initiated by students who wanted to do something. That to me is just beautiful, that students they see a need and they want to problem solve and they say, I want to do something about it. We also have a very active student council.
How does that work?
Well,
Are there first graders in the student council?
Actually, there are first grade representatives that give speeches.
I love it.
And their speeches are precious. They are. We have representatives from first grade all the way to 8th grade. And then we have officers that are mainly in the middle school position. We have a student body president, vice president, secretary. We have publicity chairs that take photos of events. Really, the leadership skills that they focus on in student council, it's something that carries them to become successful leaders in society as adults.
Okay. You've given us such a beautiful snapshot of the wonderful work and the effort, the real passion for teaching and molding these young people at St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic School in Rio Rancho. We've been speaking with Abigail Walden, who is the assistant principal. Many thanks to Principal Sister Louise and the Filippini sisters, who were they launched 20 years ago. They
Yes.
launched this school with Monsignor Ron, and serving a community with a good Catholic education. What could be better? But your passion for continuing and being part of this is really very exciting and inspiring too, Abigail. I'm so pleased that you've been able to spend this time with us.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure really to share about my school. It's part of my life. I feel like it's my family. I feel in a way I've almost grown up there, being there for 20 years and raising a family. And now my sons are adults and became a grandma over the weekend. First grandchild.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Wow.
So I really do feel like I've grown up in that community. It's a huge part of my life. It's family.
Is there any need to ask if you think your grandchild will be attending a Catholic school in 5 or 6 years? Well, 4 or 5 now.
If she lived in New Mexico, she would be attending St. Thomas Aquinas School for sure. But they live in Dallas.
Well,
if they ever come back, that's
right.
where I would want her to go to school.
Well, congratulations and
Thank
many
you.
blessings on the family and the legacy of Catholic education in your family, and the availability. What we're celebrating is the availability of a Catholic education to people in the Archdiocese of Santa Fe, and the wonderful work our Catholic educators do, and the great communities, the real family of Catholic schools that exists. It's a great way to celebrate. It's been very inspiring. Thank you, Abigail.
Thank you.